So, hi everybody. My name is Chris Arroyo. I am the regional manager for the Los Angeles office of the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the role of our agency before we get started on the presentation. So the first thing that you may want to know is what our role is. So basically what we are an advocacy agency. We happen to be a federally funded state agency that does advocacy for people with developmental disabilities. And we do it from the perspective of impacting the systems that serve people. So we don't do direct representation, we don't do individual advocacy, but we do systemic advocacy. And so our role more or less is to sort of be the rising tide that lifts all boats. Our role is to ensure that the systems that serve you and your family members are of the best possible quality, that there are no gaps between services, that the services that needs can be met through available services. And we do this in a variety of settings, such as special education, regional center, IHSS, Social Security, Medi-Cal, and the list goes on and on and on. So that's essentially our role. Part of that role also includes providing technical assistance. And if that's not a term you're familiar with, that's fine, you're not alone. It's basically fancy government talk for answering people's questions. That's what technical assistance is. It's literally providing assistance in the form of technical, complicated, specific information. So that TA, technical assistance that we provide, first of all of our services are free of charge unless we're doing a conference or something special where there's a cost incurred. And our role to answer people's questions is also free. So you can call up any of our regional offices, and our job is partly to answer your questions. And so typically questions come in two forms. Is it legal when? That's one type of question, is what does the law say, or what are the requirements for a particular system? And then the other kinds of questions tend to be strategy questions, strategic. Like I went to this agency for a service. They said I got to go to this agency. And when I went to this agency, they said that agency's got to do it. Each of them are doing, it went that way, like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons. And so the bottom line is that we can help provide strategies so that you can get the services that you need. That's pretty much the two most common type of questions. And then occasionally we get some random questions, and that's great. We actually like those unusual questions because they make us think and do our thing. So that information for where you can find your local regional office, if it doesn't happen to be LA or San Bernardino, you can find that information on our website. There's a section at the top for all of our local offices, our regional offices, and you can find that information, and all our contact information for all the offices is there. So let's get started with this presentation. So we have today state compliance complaints. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what they are and essentially how to write them. Okay, and we'll talk a bit about strategy as well, like when is a good time to use them versus some of the other options that are available to people. So I'm going to start with screen sharing right now. And I do want to show you some other documents which we put in the chat at the start of the call, and we may put in the chat, we will certainly put in the chat later on. And so you should all be seeing my Adobe Acrobat screen right now. And what it should show is IEP. Oh, sorry, this is in Spanish. So let's go to something else. Let's go to here, bullying. And so here in this bullying handbook, this is basically a handbook on anti-bullying strategies. And it's everything from things that can be placed in the IEP to how to work with the school in formal programs regarding bullying, how to fight this stuff. We also have a handbook on IEP strategy. So this is our IEP strategy guide. And we have a lot of information here that people have said they felt is very beneficial. So we're fortunate to have written that and provided it to people. And then we also have, let's see, we have some flyers on the special education complaint process, which we'll review in detail in a minute. And of course, we have a sample letter, which we will cover a little bit, which is when we get to how do we write these letters. So essentially, that is that's what we're going to cover today. I am going to be checking periodically in the chat, and so I'm going to ask your forgiveness in advance for pausing the presentation and making sure I'm getting to people's questions and stuff. I do see that there's already a comment. Someone said, I don't see the files uploaded into the chat. And the reason for that is if you arrived after I put them in the chat, you won't see them. So later on, we will be putting those back into the chat, and you'll be able to download that before the end of the presentation. If you don't have a copy, if you can't see the files in the chat and you need to leave early, just post something in the chat and we'll make sure those files get posted up there. Additionally, the San Bernardino office, who is sponsoring this presentation, has been excellent about doing follow-up from the previous 3 trainings that we've done together, and providing copies of the files to everybody so people can via email to make sure that people do have access to this information. So, okay, let's get back to screen sharing. And we're going to go to Adobe Acrobat. And we're going to go over the state complaint process. And there we go. Okay, so this is a trifold that the California Department of Education, and so one of the things you may want to get used to is I'm going to be saying CDE a lot. And CDE stands for the California Department of Education. Okay, and so CDE, and by the way, that's distinguished from DOE. DOE is the Department of Education, but when we say DOE, we're referring to the Federal Department of Education. Okay, so CDE is the California Department of Education. DOE is usually the Federal Department of Education. And so there's this special ed complaint process. They're also known as compliance complaints. And this process has gone back as far as I've known special ed, at least for 20, 25 years. Actually, no, about 30 years now. And the bottom line is that the process is actually fairly simple, and its purpose is fairly simple. So what is a complaint? Complaint alleges that there's been a failure. Okay, so the best way to think of a state compliance complaint is that there has been, you're making an allegation that the district has failed to follow the law. Okay, now it applies to a little bit more than districts. It applies to SELPAs as well. It can apply to county offices of education, any agency that provides special education services. So it's a host of folks, but I'm going to just say districts to make it easy. Okay, but understand districts. A lot of times you may hear LEA as a set of initials, an acronym. LEA stands for Local Educational Agency. And that's the term that's used as a catch-all for everything else. So when we say, districts, usually you're just talking about a school district. But when you say LEA, you're also talking about SELPAs, county offices of education, charter schools, and then other public agencies such as the state. So bottom line is LEA or districts. For the purposes of this training alone, I'm going to use them largely interchangeably, even though I probably shouldn't. Okay, I'll try and be good about it. But yeah, so LEA is the term, Local Educational Agency. Okay, so again, this is an allegation that the district has failed to follow the law. And I've already done it incorrectly. So this is an allegation that the LEA has failed to follow the law. Okay. The process is available to any student, and you can actually do this on behalf of other students, which we'll get in a little bit detail later. But when a complaint is made, you can make that complaint on behalf of the student that you're writing the letter, or if you're a student, you could write this letter yourself. And you can say, this letter pertains to, say, my child, and then you give the name, age, grade, school name, teacher name, all that stuff, lots of details. We'll get into that later. And once you provide all that information, you can then basically say, I'm writing this complaint on behalf of my child and all other students in similar situations. And so what that does is it then takes it from a complaint about one student and it turns it into a complaint pertaining to all students who may be affected by this issue. And that's a big deal because ultimately what it does is it takes any resolution that can be made and it turns it into a systemic issue where something needs to happen. And so as an individual issue, they'll fix it for you, but as a systemic issue, they'll fix it for everybody. And so there's a lot of power in that. And so we're gonna talk about that later on when we talk about writing the letter, okay? Who can file a complaint? Basically anybody who thinks that there's been a violation of the law. So it can be anybody. I could write one, okay? Generally speaking, we want to encourage parents to write their own letters. And again, we'll get into those strategies in a bit. What information has to be in the complaint? What the problem is, what the facts are, and in a perfect world, a proposed resolution from you. The dream world outcome that you want to see as a result of this complaint that you're filing, okay? There is a complaint to resolve, there is a process to resolve complaints locally. Those tend to be informal processes, but sometimes they can be very formal processes. And you can do you can make those kinds of complaints. One of the, like with LA Unified, which is the largest district in our area, Los Angeles Unified School District, there's a process called a uniform complaint procedure. And with that uniform complaint procedure, and many districts and LEAs use that term, uniform complaint procedure, that's sort of like the local version of a state compliance complaint. So that is an option. Generally speaking, for strategic reasons, you may want to consider a state compliance complaint first. And again, we'll talk about some of those strategic issues later on. Where do I send my complaints? Easy. You send them to CDE. Pretty simple. The address is there. If you forget it, if you can't find this flyer, you can always go to CDE's website and get their address and send it to them there. And we're going to navigate their website in a moment and talk about that. How long does it take? The law says that the California Department of Education has 60 days to investigate the complaint and basically indicate what their findings are. If they substantiate the claims in the complaint, if they're not substantiated, and then what kind of proposed resolutions, or rather, excuse me, what resolutions they require of the LEA, if any, to resolve. And then understanding terms, I think you guys all are pretty familiar with the terms IEP. I recognize many of your names, so I believe that many of you have attended the previous training that we've provided on IEPs. And so I don't think we need to go into that in any detail. And then there are some more terms here, okay? And of course, they have contact information for where, what phone number can you call, or where can you visit on the website. So what I'm going to do right now is switch over. We're going to stop screen sharing. And I want to switch over to my browser. And I want to show you where you can find this information on the website. Okay, so this is the complaint process right here. But let me show you how to navigate it. So when you go to California Department of Education's website, which is simply cde.ca.gov, okay, so all state websites have a similar formula for their websites. It's generally www. And then the initials of the agency, and then .ca.gov. So for example, Our website for the State Council on Developmental Disabilities is exactly what you might think it is. It's www.scdd.ca.gov. And in most circumstances, you can drop the www dot and just do scdd.ca.gov. You can just do cde.ca.gov. If you were going to call the Department of Consumer Affairs, if you wanted to pull up the webpage for the Department of Consumer Affairs, no surprise, it's DCA, Department of Consumer Affairs, dca.ca.gov. Okay, so that's how you can navigate websites a bit easier. So looking at this web page, this is CDE's website. This is the front page of their site. And so there's a couple things. First of all, there's a lot of subject headings up here with lots of sub issues below them. Okay, there's lots of stuff. Secondly, as we scroll down, you can see links to other things that are popular and so on. And one of them is complaint procedures. Okay, and if we click that, boom, we go right to the page that is the complaint process. Okay, now I don't want to do that right this second because I want to show you how to navigate in case you forgot. So for all things related to special education, you're always going to go to the website. You then click specialized programs, and you can then click special education. So right here are pretty much all the options regarding special education. So you can see administration and support. That doesn't sound like making complaints. That sounds like advisory groups getting together and what's happening. Announcement and current issues, probably not. Common Core resources, no. Data collection and reporting, this is not about that, and so on. And finally, you get to laws, regulations, and policies, quality assurance, and services. So when I was looking for this myself in preparation for this training, you can see, because it's purple, which ones I looked for in trying to find the complaint process. Because I did not go to the bottom of the page. I did not find the popular links. I went here and I tried to navigate. So I went to the laws and regulations and policies and got nowhere. There's nothing here that says anything about complaints. So, okay, fine, we go back. We do the standard web search. And then I went to services and resources and I looked for information pertaining to these things. And as you can see, at least at a relatively fast scroll, that information doesn't seem to be apparent, right? Now look at this, there's other stuff, training on writing IEPs based on state standards, et cetera. Lots of information here. So you may want to consider going through CDE's website and really exploring it, because there is a lot of good, you can get lost very quick in a very good way on this website. So as we scroll down, we can see on the quality assurance process, so they've got headings, make it convenient for us, annual performance reports, state performance plan, complaint support unit. Gee, that sounds something like what we're looking for, right? Focused monitoring, technical assistance, rights of people, parents' rights, etc. Boom, better. Complaint filing, investigation, and resolution, the complaint process. And here it is, I'm back to the same place. So you can see, you may bump around a little bit until you finally find what you're looking for, but for the most part, it's not terribly difficult to find. And again, once you come to this website and explore it a little bit, it gets easier and easier every single time. One thing I do want to note, and especially if I fail to mention this later, is the complaint support unit that's here on this page, okay, which again is the quality assurance process page. And once again, I'm going to review this. Go to specialized programs, special education, quality assurance, and boom, you're on this page. And here it has the complaint support unit. So the complaint support unit provides technical assistance. Remember what I said, in the role of our own agent, of my agency, we provide technical assistance. Fancy government talk for answering people's questions. So this unit, their sole job is to tell you more or less what is the law on pertaining to special education. And in this case in particular, about complaints. And so you can call them, because this is a resource for parents and other people and school districts, and you can call them up and say, hey, this and that happened. I don't think it's legal. Can you tell me if it's legal? What do you think? What would be my options in this case? What could I do? And they'll tell you. Okay. And I know that a lot of parents have told us in the past that that they're suspicious of this line. They wonder if maybe there's a conflict of interest, if maybe there's a vested interest in making sure people don't know stuff. In our experience, generally speaking, when families have relayed the information they've gotten from this unit, generally speaking, it's been accurate. We have heard of inaccuracies periodically, but we don't hear inaccuracies to the level where, you know, I want to look in every shadow and see what's going on. It just doesn't feel like that. They just seem like innocent inaccuracies when it's happened, and that's basically that. And so all that information is there, and you can call them for additional information. Okay, and of course you can always call your local state council office, and we will be happy to provide you with whatever information we can as well. But you may find there may be some benefit contacting CDE for this stuff, because ultimately this is their role, and they've got a unit devoted just to this. Okay, so let's get to the complaint process. Now, one of the things you may notice is, you remember that trifold that I shared and we kind of went over briefly. CDE no longer has that brief information trifold, the one pager. What they have instead is this page here on the website. Pardon me. And so here's the information. So so we're going to go over this together real quickly, because, you know, I could do this in a PowerPoint, but you know, what's the point? More or less, any agency that takes any kind of governmental dollars, so whether they're federal dollars, state dollars, county dollars, local, municipality, city, town, whatever, if they're getting any money at all from any governmental agency, the bottom line is that you will find that they must have at least two procedures, at least two. One procedure to enable people to appeal decisions that they disagree with. Every agency. So schools take governmental funding. Therefore, schools are subject to having an appeal procedure. So due process is that procedure. Secondarily, every agency, or not secondarily, excuse me, number two, each agency that accepts governmental dollars must also have a complaint procedure, something where somebody can make an allegation that the law has not been followed. And that's this process, the state compliance complaint process, or just the complaint process. Okay, with regional centers, if you're familiar with the regional center system, 4731 complaints fulfill that role of making a complaint. Okay, fair hearings, the appeal process to appeal decisions about an IPP, that's the appeal process. And so you'll find this across all agencies that accept governmental dollars. Okay, and so here we go. So this information is to help people understand how it works. What is it? Again, it's an allegation that the law has failed to be followed, that the district or the LEA has failed to follow the law. Okay. And so if you believe that the district, so they're giving examples of when someone might file or request a complaint or provide, excuse me, make a complaint. So if you think that the school district is not providing the services included in the IEP, it's a great reason to do a state compliance complaint. And the reason why is because the law says that the school must provide services in accordance with the IEP. They must follow the IEP. And so if the IEP isn't followed, there's a violation of that law. So, and then, for example, a copy of the student's IEP was requested and the district didn't provide it. School records. There's a California law, if I remember right, it's, what is it, 56504? Might be 54504, but I'm almost sure it's 56504. That's the section in the California Education Code in the law that basically says if a student or family requests a copy of school documents, the district must provide it within 5 working days. So basically within a calendar week. And that's it. Well, if the district fails to provide the document, well, they're not following the law. And there's some other examples too. So one example I can think of is if somebody requested an evaluation and failed to get the assessment plan, or the school said, no, we're just not going to do it. And it's not permitted for them to say no. For example, it's been more than a year since the last evaluation. So, or if somebody asks for, they say, look, I disagree with the school's independent education, or I disagree with the school's evaluation. I am requesting an independent educational evaluation. And the school says no. Those are all great reasons to do a state compliance complaint. Okay. I also know of families who've done state compliance complaints because their SELPA did not make the meetings for the Community Advisory Committee open in accordance with the Brown Act. So the Brown Act says public meetings must be open, available to the public. They have to be noticed, which is just fancy talk for they have to post somewhere that a meeting is going to be taking place. And so I know families have done state compliance complaints based on the fact that their SELPA failed to make sure the meetings were properly noticed, open. They basically made the allegation that the district tried to hide the meeting. And as in 2 instances, the last 2 instances that I can think of, those complaints were substantiated, and the SELPA had to make changes. So who can do it? Virtually anybody, as we said before. What information needs to be included? We're going to talk about it, but it's basically a statement that they failed to follow the law. So that's number 1. Number 2, the facts that can prove that the district failed to follow the law. Okay. And then number 3, signature and contact information for the person making the complaint. That's all you have to have. Now, we recommend including some other things, such as proposed resolutions. Okay. And here we go. If the complaint concerns a specific child, the following information must, remember, must also be included: the child's name and address, name of the school, contact info for the student if they happen to be homeless or experiencing homelessness, a description of how the alleged violation affected the student, including facts related to the problem, and then a proposed resolution. And this can be simple, okay? A description of how the violation affected the student. Student didn't get the services, okay? We're not talking about the impact, didn't get the services, and then therefore they weren't able to learn, they weren't able to, no, you don't have to even get that far. You can just say they didn't get the services. And then you must include a proposed resolution of the problem, okay? So we're gonna go over what those look like in a sample letter, okay? Complaint must be also forward a copy to the school district, which we will cover again later when we get into the letter itself. A complainant may use a model complaint form. And so if I click on that form, you can see it. And basically this form includes all the things that are needed in order to make the complaint. Okay. Now, in the past, we had recommended that people do not use this form because it made it very hard for people to tell their story. It was very difficult. There weren't, some of the sections that are included now in the form didn't exist years ago. Well, glad that CDE revised the document and they've made it easier. So if you want to use the form, you can, but generally speaking, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the letter, the form letter that we've created. And that's what we're going to go over today as part of this training, okay? Again, CDE has 60 days to investigate it. And by the way, 60 days is how much time they have to investigate it, but we've heard reports from many people, including other advocacy agencies, informing us that sometimes it can take as long as 3 months or even 4 months to do the investigation. And so generally speaking, it's most people's experience of 60 days, but we do hear plenty of times where it's needed more time than that. Okay, what can delay it? What can delay it is if you don't include all the information. If you don't include all the required information, it's going to delay the investigation. Okay. Is there a time limit? Yes, there is. So if you want to make a complaint about something, you can go as far back as 1 year. 1 year. So from the date that the violation occurred, no more than 1 year. So you can go as far back as 1 year. If you want to make a complaint about something that happened 6 months ago, you can. If you want to make a complaint about something that happened 10 months ago, you can. You want to make a complaint about something that happened 364 days ago, no problem. You want to make a complaint about something that happened 366 days ago, can't do it. I mean, you could do it, but it's going to get rejected and it doesn't have to be investigated. So ultimately, you can only go back 1 year. Okay. Where's the complaint filed? Here, same place. Nothing new about that. Again, 60 days to conduct the investigation. And then what happens? Okay. So CDE is supposed to be a neutral fact finder. They do not act as an advocate for either party. And so here's some more information. When a complaint is received, the request is screened to make sure all the information is there. And so now they're going through the step by step. They assign it to a team of investigators to decide whether or not the allegations are required. So what they basically do is double check that a law has been broken. Okay. And then you would be contacted in order to clarify missing information, provide supplemental information, that kind of thing. Generally speaking, we don't recommend that, or sorry, generally speaking, we recommend that you make your complaint in such a way where further contact and further information hopefully won't be needed. Okay, hopefully won't be needed. So so that's basically that. Once the allegations are confirmed and the information is obtained, then both parties, the person who made the complaint and the LEA, and you can see they're using that term LEA, will receive a notification letter saying that the investigation has been or has concluded, more or less. And then copies of the complaint can be given to the LEA. Okay. There is CDE encourages collaborative, cooperative relationships. As part of CDE's required responsibilities, the LEA is given the opportunity to respond to the complaint. Okay, so there may be a little bit of back and forth. The LEA may provide additional documents. There's a variety of ways that this can be handled. Okay, now if the LEA refuses to provide that information to CDE, let's see, fail to cooperate, it may result in a finding based on evidence collected that a violation has occurred. Okay, so if the LEA, if CDE says, yeah, so this complaint was made and it was made on behalf of this student and all others similarly situated. So we need a copy of every request that has been made for school records for the past year. And we need both we need a copy of the letter when the information was requested, and then we want to see a copy of what was provided to the person who made the request for the documents for the family. And if the district says, well, we can't find it, we're not going to give it to you, whatever the reason is, the dog ate it, fine. They may immediately more or less just say, okay, well, seeing as how they can't provide the evidence, we're going to have to find in favor of the family. Okay. And same thing. In addition, refusal by the complainant to provide the investigator with information may result in a dismissal of the complaint. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If it's going to be good for one side in this process, it needs to apply to the other side in this process. So that's why we always recommend people check your voicemails, check your mail, always quickly check these things, promptly check these things, because you don't want this kind of stuff to go stale. Okay. All right, so the investigation is based on a gathering of facts throughout the allegations. So what they're going to look for is, or are, sorry, what they're going to look for are communications with both parties. They're going to be doing, they're going to be getting information concerning the communication to get clarification, review of documents, interviews, and CDE may even visit the school as part of gathering that information. And so they may review everything from service logs to assessment documents, IEPs, team meeting minutes, all these kinds of things. And this is, again, not a comprehensive list. They can look at many, many other kinds of documents. The investigator will review all relevant documents and the information gathered to decide whether or not a violation has occurred. And then a written decision report will be mailed within 60 calendar days. Okay, so, and it's calendar days. So they're very clear about that here. And so again, the great thing is about this entire process is if you forget much of what we talked about in this training, you can always come back to CDE's website and read this, and it'll be a good refresher. Okay, so what is a written state complaint report? It's basically an allegation that there's been a violation of special education law. Just that simple. Okay, and the report includes all of these things. Okay, a summary of the allegations, the problem that you've identified, generally what procedures they followed to investigate and gather the information. Then they talk about the law and the requirements. Then they talk about what they found and figured out and how that applies to the law. So they basically take those facts and apply it to the standard of the law, and they basically decide at that point whether or not the law is followed. Okay, and then if there needs to be corrective action, if it was found more or less in your favor, then the corrective action needs to be spelled out. I do want to note that I just got a question in the chat. Would these rules apply to a 2-year-old student in early Head Start program, pre-diagnosis, pre-assessment, and IEP? And the answer is no. So that is for early start, and that process is a bit different. Okay, so early start has its own complaint procedure. That said, it largely looks like this. Okay, and so we're not doing early start complaint procedures. I want to be very clear about that. But a lot of this information will transfer over well. If you even want to go to CDE right now, and in their search box at the top of the page up here on the upper right, you can actually even do here, early start compliance complaints. And, oh yeah, we're gonna have to go somewhere else. So we got to go to the early start section. So bottom line, I don't want to get too distracted from the main presentation, but it should not be terribly difficult to find. And if you do have difficulty finding it, just contact one of our local offices and we'll be able to get that to you. Okay, so what if there is non-compliance? What if there is? What if it's found in your favor? Well, corrective actions can include a whole bunch of stuff. So CDE can require the district to do the following things. Okay, so they can do everything from, let's see, conducting additional assessments, submitting plans to correct violations like training their own staff. Oh, sorry, that's the next point. Initiate personnel training, provide compensatory education. Okay, now comp ed is a concept I do want to explain right now. I know we've talked about it in the previous trainings, but I do want to get into it in a little more detail in case you have not attended the previous trainings, or if you've forgotten, or maybe you're just not clear on it. Whatever. So bottom line is, let's make it easy. So a lot of times we say compensatory, the full term is compensatory education, but a lot of time people say comp ed for short. Okay, comp ed, compensatory education. Okay, and basically what it is compensatory education is the idea that a service needs to be provided to make up for the lack of the service in the past. Okay, so let me give you a concrete example, because I know when I say the lack of something or the failure of something, a lot of people have to kind of squint and close their eyes and think a little bit about. At least I do, and I've seen it in trainings I do. So not everybody, obviously, but I want to be sensitive to that. So let me give you an example. Let's say comp ed. So let's say you've got an IEP. It's got a number of services in it. And for a variety of reasons, who knows why, the services that are in the IEP have not been provided to the student for the last, let's say, 3 months. Okay, just 3 months. If there is non-compliance, which it sounds like there is, if you've got a current IEP with all the services the student should get, it's not being provided to the student, that they're failing to follow the law. And so as a result, you can file a complaint, and you'll probably found, the district will probably, or LEA will probably be found in non-compliance. Okay, so what then happens is, if you didn't get if your child didn't get the services for 3 months, at the very least, comp ed needs to include those missing 3 months worth of services, which means if you've got a new IEP, or they started implementing the IEP, you should continue getting the services from the new IEP, or the resuming of the service, and then an additional 3 months worth of services on top of that. Usually comp ed is awarded, and it's got to be used over the course of a year. Okay. Now, the thing about comp ed, remember what I said, at a minimum, it must include those 3 missing months worth of services. But that may not be enough, because the idea of compensatory education is that we're providing a service to make up for the lack of those services before. Well, at a minimum, like I said, it's going to be the actual number of hours that are missing. However, let's say your child, your student, has lost a little bit. Let's say because they didn't get that speech therapy over those 3 months, or let's even say 6 months, just to make it an even bigger loss of skills and abilities, right? Usually summertime, a lot of students in special education lose skills over the summertime in just 2-3 months. But let's use a bigger example to make it clear. 6 months. Okay, so at a minimum, the student should get at least 6, if found in non-compliance. The student should get at a minimum those 6 months of missing services, and then an additional level to make up for the loss that the student experienced because they didn't get the service, right? So it's designed to get the student to where they should be, but aren't, because those services were never provided. Okay, so that's compensatory education, and it's a very powerful tool. It's one of the ways that problems can get resolved, and LEAs can make it up to the student. Okay. Additionally, they could review excuse me, if CDE finds the LEA in non-compliance, they could also require that procedures and practices are changed. Okay, they could require the convening of an IEP meeting. They can participate in monitoring and reporting activities. So CDE may go in and watch and see what the school district is doing for some time and require additional reporting requirements. So that's a big deal. So you can see that the kinds of things that you ask for are big deal things. Okay, and again, it's all right here on this web page. You can come and look at this anytime you like. The outcome of the written state compliance complaint. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to copy and paste this into the chat. So I'm going to stop the share real quick so I can get the chat. And I'm going to drop the link up, and I've direct messaged it to somebody. I apologize. Let's try that again. There we go. And everybody should see a link, and that'll take you directly to the link. Even though we navigated and all that kind of stuff, I just want to make sure that you can easily find this sometime in the future. All right, so we get back to sharing. So the outcome of the written state compliance complaint is a final decision. Okay. Any non-compliance is going to be monitored for completion. So the CDE has a unit devoted exclusively to just looking at, did the LEA implement the changes? Did they do the stuff, the corrective actions that are necessary? Okay. Sometimes you may hear them called CAPs. I don't hear it often, but occasionally I do, for corrective action plans, CAP, corrective action plans. So sometimes I hear them called CAPs. It's usually jargon that I hear with advocates, but occasionally I hear school district staff say it. And so I just want you to be aware that that term exists. If you disagree with the report, okay, basically you can put in a request for reconsideration, which is essentially, hey guys, could you review this again, please? And that's basically it. Now there is a time limit. And so within 30 days of the date that's on the investigation report, you've got to send your request for reconsideration. So keep that in mind, because sometimes people think it's 30 days from the date they received the investigation report, and that's not the case. So please keep that in mind, because we wouldn't want you to blow your deadlines and then miss out on an opportunity to reconsider. The thing is generally speaking, when it comes to this stuff that's governed by timelines, our recommendation is to do it on the front end. Never wait till the back end, because ultimately life may get in the way and you may lose that deadline. So, okay, let's continue. So you send that request for reconsideration in writing. You can fax or mail it, or you can email it, and then you want to say why. So basically, that the findings are insufficient to reach a conclusion of law. The findings of fact are not supported by evidence. Conclusions are inconsistent with the law. Corrective actions fail to provide the proper remedy. So if you feel like yeah, the things that CDE is requiring of the LEA, it's weak. It's not going to fix this problem in the future, and it's not even going to fix this problem right now, sitting where we are. So yeah, I think I need to ask them to reconsider. Totally appropriate. Okay, and so you've got these reasons for that. You've got to sort of categorize your request for reconsideration. Okay, now what happens if CDE receives the reconsideration, or when they receive the request? Okay, they're going to get it and they're going to start their process. Okay, that's basically what all this says. Okay, and you can read this later. They will not consider information that wasn't included before. Okay, so if there's information, like if you do it and they say, well, there's, we say, it wasn't, we didn't find the LEA non-compliance. It looks like they complied, and you want to do a request for reconsideration. And then when you read the report, you realize, oh, wait, they didn't know that blah, 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 blah. Shoot, I got to tell them. You can't, you can do that, but they're going to ignore it, and it's not going to be used in the reconsideration request. So the only time that that's true is if you did not know that information earlier. Okay, it was not known to the party during the investigation and could not have become known to the party during that time, even with due diligence. Okay, so basically any new information that you might want to include in reconsideration has to be literally new information that you just discovered. It's new information to you. Okay, again, if it's information you knew earlier and you want to say, oh, wait, hold on, I forgot to include this, too bad. Okay, so you gotta really take your time in writing your complaint letter. All right, so how do districts respond? They submit supporting documentation. Okay, that's pretty much, they get to respond and they get to submit the evidence that they have to support their position. Okay, what are CDE's responsibility? To conduct the investigation, inform parties, do follow-up info, provide technical assistance to the LEAs. Remember, fancy government talk for answering people's questions. So they've got to basically provide that technical info to the LEA, right? So, and again, technical info is just real specific stuff that people aren't necessarily going to know. Usually it's legal stuff, okay? It often includes more, but it often includes legal stuff, almost always. Reconsiders the investigation reports when requested in accordance with state law. And then, of course, retaining all documents in accordance with CDE policy. So bottom line is CDE's responsibilities, they're being very clear and transparent about what they need to do. Okay, so we go on to alternatives for resolving. So there are a number of alternatives for resolving state complaints. So while the parent can file a complaint with CDE or participate in a local alternative dispute resolution arranged by the LEA. So here in LA, that's called the Uniform Complaint Procedure. And the parent can also participate in mediation with OAH or request due process. Okay, so when they say request a hearing with OAH, I believe they're referring to due process. So they talk about the fact that people can ask for mediation to resolve, disagreements about the complaint itself. And that process is outlined here. Honestly, I rarely hear of people making use or needing to make use of this option. So you can see that it's here. You can review this later on your own. And they get into what it is and how do you do it? What's the procedure? And of course, it's basically contacting them. And then there are additional resources and other information. Okay, so this information is here. It's available for you. Oh, yeah. So comparison of processes to resolve disagreements related to special ed. One of the most common questions that their technical assistance unit receives is basically questions pertaining to questions pertaining to what should I do? Should I do a state compliance complaint or should I do due process? Which one is appropriate? Okay, so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But we're gonna stop sharing the screen. And again, if you want to go over this in detail, you can actually. It's not that long. Let's go over it real quick. So who can do it? For due process, it's really just the parent or the LEA. For a complaint with CDE, pretty much anybody can. Okay, what's the timeline? It's 1 year for state compliance complaints, and it's up to 2 years for due process. Okay. For a state compliance complaint, it's about you can resolve anything regarding the violation of any laws, any special ed laws. Okay. For due process, you can use that for anything that concerns the identification, evaluation, or placement or provision of a FAPE. So due process is sort of the everything thing. You can bring up violations of law in due process. You can bring up the fact that you feel like your child isn't benefiting from their education, which is a failure to provide a free, appropriate public education. You can do due process because of a failure to conduct evaluations, a host of things. Okay, and we're going to get into a little more detail in a moment. What is the timeline for resolving the issues? 60 days for CDE to investigate a complaint, whereas for due process, there are a number of different deadlines throughout the process. Generally speaking, we hear due process cases tend to be resolved between 2 months and 6 months, with some cases going on for a year and maybe even longer than a year. Okay. All right, so I see a question in the chat. How can I collect evidence that my child needs extended school year to get compensatory? That's kind of a complicated question, and I don't think that that's really part of a state compliance complaint presentation. The bottom line is that if ESY is an issue, then I would suggest you go to CDE's to this website and find issues regarding ESY. So one of my favorite articles is actually, it's not on this website, but let me double check. So I'm just doing a search, extended school year. Yeah, no. So I'm going to give you a pro tip. If you go to Rights Law is our parent attorneys who had a child in special education, and they only represent families, and they have a lot of free publications and articles on their website, and then they have a number of things you have to pay for. They have books and stuff that you can purchase, and a lot of people we aren't getting paid. We're not affiliated with Rights Law in any way, but a lot of families tell us that they are very, very, very pleased with the information they get from Rights Law. And so I know that they have a fantastic article on extended school year, and when can you ask for it, how can you get it, et cetera, et cetera. And so here, where are we? What happened? All right, I don't want IEP, I just want extended school year. All right, I'm not finding it. Where are we? What page are we on? Oh, we're no longer on the website. So let's go back to Rights Law. And in their search box, extended school year. Here we go. So up here, they have websites where they note, and then down here is where you get the returns for the things that are on the website. And so if we look at this, you can see extended school year services. Okay, let's click on it. What does that say? Boom. Standards for extended school year, advocacy strategies. Okay, additional articles. All the stuff in blue are additional articles. So, and they talk about regression and recoupment, which are the two primary issues pertaining to extended school year. So you may have to educate yourself on this, but that's basically how you do it. I generally would not request extended school year as a form of compensatory education. You could, but I wouldn't. If your child needs extended school year, they need extended school year. Okay. But if they need compensatory education, generally speaking, extended school year may not be the best form of that. That said, extended school year may be exactly what you need. So, and I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but it depends on your circumstances is the point. Okay, so, but you can see that's there on Rights Law, and you saw I had a little trouble bumping into it and finding it, but it didn't take terribly long. And so I don't expect that you'll have terrible trouble. Just remember that when you're on Rights Law, if you're going to search for something, understand that when you search for it, those first few links are, or those first few returns are ads. You can see it says advertisement, and then you get to the stuff that's on the website. So so just be careful of that. Other than that, I think that you'll find it's not terribly difficult. And again, Rights Law, this is just one of those websites that are just fantastic for just devouring. Just sit down every night and just spend 15 minutes on it. You'll learn so much. It's really just an amazing opportunity. And then that's basically it. I think the last point was who resolves the issue. So with a state compliance complaint, it's CDE, and with due process, it's a hearing officer. Okay. Now the thing is, with due process, you've got to, our recommendation is that people obtain the services of a special ed lawyer. Okay. So that can be pricey. If you've got a good case, your lawyer can represent you for free. That's great. Awesome. But the fact is there are some issues, many issues that can be resolved through a state compliance complaint that can be helpful. Now, and it's just less painful because the state compliance complaint is essentially just writing a letter. And the thing is, a lot of families have told us that they feel like it's a less confrontational process than due process. And so ultimately, writing a letter, resolving things, putting the resolution in writing, you can do that informally with the district. And then if they fail to follow through, you just file a state compliance complaint, so long as it's not been more than a year. So bottom line is that it can be a great option for you. Now, the thing is, some state compliance complaints, if you're considering doing a state compliance complaint, and it's because Like say you feel like your child isn't benefiting from their education. Well, that's an allegation of a failure to provide a FAPE. That is a violation of the law. The law says that a FAPE has to be provided to students. Okay, fine. But then proving that and getting into it is tough. And you may need to provide a lot of information. For those kinds of cases, generally speaking, due process is the way to fix it. Okay, due process is the way to fix it, to build something that makes sense. Okay, and when I say something, I mean an IEP or a program, services and supports that the student needs. So to build something that they need, you're more likely to need due process. Okay, but if you're just correcting an issue or a failure to follow the law for a very particular thing, like a failure to do an evaluation, like and let's do that. Let's say you've requested an evaluation. It's been 2 years since the district did an evaluation. The question right away I'm gonna be asking myself is, okay, do I need to do due process or state compliance complaint or something else? Now, if they failed to do the evaluation, and I think that their failure to do the evaluation now puts them in a position where I need to ask for a particular service. I want to fight for the service. Okay, fine, due process. If their failure to do an evaluation is, we just don't know enough about my child here, well, then fine, you might want to just say, do a state compliance complaint, make the district do the evaluation so we can get the info we need, and then we'll hold an IEP. And if things don't work out there, then we can go to due process and take care of things there. So it is something where the best way to get a sense of which process is best is through experience. And so talk to people, go to parent support groups, talk it out with other folks, talk about it with advocates, talk about it with your local state council office. You can even discuss it with your local special ed advocate or attorney, and they should be able to help guide you through this. We have, and even your local, how can I forget? Local family resource center at the regional center. If your child has a regional center case, you can go to the FRC and they might be able to help guide you through this process as well. Additionally, some regional centers have special ed advocates on staff or staff who can act as specialists in special ed, and they might be able to help you and guide you through the process as well. Lastly, remember, there's that technical assistance unit, that support unit at CDE. You can give them a call. Okay, so knowing exactly when, I would strongly recommend that you talk to other people to figure out if that's the best option for you. Okay, and again, the only reason why is because it's only through experience that you can really figure out which process is the best one for your situation. Okay, let's go to Acrobat, and we're going to get into how to write a letter. So first things first, let's switch to the right document. Boom, here we go. Okay, now this is a sample letter. Remember, I said that you can fill out the form on CDE's website. So if you want to fill out their form, you can fill out their form. But generally speaking, we prefer a letter. In that letter, you can include a lot of information. The structure is nice and tight. Now, one of the things that we've done with this letter is the letter kind of looks like the investigation report, the report on the investigation that CDE conducted. And my dream with this, or the intent, is if you write a letter that looks like their report, how great would it be if all they do is delete your information at the top of the letter, put in theirs, and then your letter kind of looks like their investigation. You're almost doing the work for them. One parent joked and they said, you know, there's this kind of stereotype about state workers. in a lot of places. And sometimes people, oh, state workers, lazy, they don't want to do it. Okay, well, I'm a state worker, so keep that in mind. But one of the things they said is, well, lazy state workers. And when they saw this letter, people said, oh my gosh, this is perfect, because more or less the parent has written the investigational report so long as the investigation finds the evidence, right? Finds it in your favor. But then this can simply be changed real easily for them, and they can use this. Hey, great. Do part of their work for them. Why not? Okay. It hurts nobody. So that's part of our strategy and why we use a letter as well. Okay. So now notice the things: your address, your city, everything, where you're at. Remember, included information, the required information needed to include your address. Okay. You want to send it registered mail, not certified mail. Registered mail is half the price, and you'll still have evidence that the district received it, or the LEA. Okay. So, and then you want to, of course, put in the date. I apologize. It's been a while since I've updated this letter. And then you can notice this is the same address that we saw on all that information. You want to include your child's name and date of birth. And here's the information that you changed. So all this stuff in red. So I'm going to make this bigger for you. Okay. So to whom it may concern, we're writing this complaint in reference to our son or daughter, and then you put your child's name. Your child lives with us. My child lives with us and presently attends the teacher's name. So you want to say like Mrs. Smith's third grade classroom at the Thomas Edison Elementary School. Okay. And then pursuant to the regulations, you're basically stating this is a formal complaint alleging violations from, and then you want to put in the name of your LEA. Okay. And then you want to say, including but not limited to the following laws. And then you cite the law. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people say, wait, I got to cite the law. How am I going to do that? I don't know the law. Great, no problem. Call an advocate, call your local state council, call your regional office of the state council, and you can call Disability Rights California, call a local advocate, and people should be able to provide you with this kind of information. Now, this letter, okay, I want to point out this letter, some of you, if you're a legal nerd, like myself, you may actually recognize some of these codes, okay? And this is all the stuff that has to do with IEPs. So this letter is about the district's failure to implement the IEP, okay? It's about their failure to implement the IEP. And so we've quoted the law and all the things required in the law about the fact that IEPs have to be implemented, or the services in the IEP have to be implemented. Okay, so you can call the state council or other advocates if you need the citations for different issues. Okay, and then you basically formally state we are requesting a formal investigation of these allegations, not informal, not some other process. You're being very clear about what you want. Now, here's the thing. Remember, you got to talk about what laws have been violated. So here we include that. And if you notice, we have, let's see, let me make sure I get this right. Whoops, sorry, let's shrink this down a little. So the LEA has pervasively denied a free appropriate public education for your child. The LEA has failed to adequately provide special education and related services. Well, that's almost a word-for-word statement of what the law says in these sections. And then the district has failed to implement the child's IEP. Okay, since, and then the date that they last provided the service. Okay. In this situation, in this letter, it's an example of a case for a child who's been diagnosed with an intellectual disability and a seizure disorder. The thing is when you write this stuff, okay, and this is an actual letter. A parent actually sent this to CDE. At the time, we did not have any examples of these letters, and believe it or not, I actually had some time to help this person. I just finished a big project, And so what I did was the person had a really difficult time writing the letter. We went back and forth a few times. And finally, I just offered to write a letter that they could use and adapt for their use, and I would be able to use for future trainings. So here we are. But generally speaking, you want to write that letter in a way that's devoid of emotion. Okay, you don't want to get into name calling. You don't want to talk about how angry you were. You don't want to. This is about the facts. This is about what does the law require? Did they do it? It's just that simple. Okay, so that's how you want to explain it. Okay, so that's why in the section above we have, whoops, trying to get down points number 1 and 2, and I can't do it without shrinking. Okay, so points number 1 and 2. Pervasively denied a free appropriate education, has failed to adequately provide the services, okay, has failed to implement the IEP as written. It's nearly a quote of what the law requires, okay? So that's the allegations. You want to provide the information in a way so that a total stranger can understand what's going on, okay? So that's the standard. So the great thing about this is you can have a friend who doesn't know anything at all about special education. But if you tell them to read the letter and they go, okay, there's some legalese in here. It's a little, it's a little technical, but yeah, I kind of get what's going on. If they get what's going on and they understand it, perfect. Because that's the CDE person who's going to be reviewing this. The person from CDE, that staff member has got to understand everything that's happening. So for you to talk about it with other people who don't really have a background or understand or know the particulars of your situation, perfect. Great way to test out whether your letter is clear or not. Okay. So what you want to also include is why what you are requesting is reasonable. Okay. So it should flow. It should be logical. It should be rational why you are asking for this thing. Okay. So right away, when I look at the violation of the law, the district has failed to implement this IEP as written. Okay. Well, what needs to happen? What am I requesting that would be reasonable? They implement it and they give me compensatory education to make up for the lack of it. So it's just one should flow into the other. Okay. So always include a copy of everything that's referenced and note that it's attached. Okay, so if you're going to say, okay, here's a copy of my IEP, remember, you want to provide evidence. So if you want to say, here's a copy of my IEP proving that the LEA is supposed to provide these services, okay, make sure you attach it to your letter. Make sure you include a full copy of that IEP, okay? So you want to put your child's name and indicate that they've been diagnosed with certain diagnoses, okay? And then, and that's just background information. And then you get to, whoops. Sorry. All right, I'm gonna have to shrink it a little. I don't want to move to the next page. So there we go. Now, in the current IEP, it's attached. Okay, current IEP dated 5/15. There's no doubt about which IEP we're talking about. It's attached. Okay, indicates the following, and then word for word, you put in what's in the IEP. Okay, so in order to meet the student's language and communication needs, a speech therapist will blah 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 3 sessions a week, 30 minutes each. 2 sessions will be individual, 1 will be in a small group. Okay. So what you also want to put is where it is, what page number. And if there's any mistake or error here, you may even want to put in what paragraph number, what sentence, okay? Make it easy for the investigator to do their job, okay? Just make it easy. So it's numbered page 12 of 43, and it's hand labeled page 34 of 43, okay? So it means that there's numbers printed on the page and that there are numbers handwritten onto the page. So we're making it easy, we're giving them both. OT, occupational therapy, they're supposed to get 60 minutes of OT a week. We put down where that is in the IEP. In the chart labeled IEP service summary at the top of numbered page 12 of 43, it notes that it will be provided blah, 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 blah. It notes it will be provided blah, blah, blah. Spell everything out. Does this look repetitious? Yes, it is. Why? We want to spell it out. We want to make it easy for the investigator. Okay. Then you want to note that the IEP was approved. The parent or whoever has the ability, you, let's just say you, signed and consented to the IEP. Now it's a valid IEP. If you didn't sign it, it's not a valid IEP. Then you can show the speech therapy logs during the period indicate that no speech therapy was provided to your child. Now, what are these logs I'm talking about? If you're not familiar with it, there are these things called service logs. And you may even remember having seen that on when we were reviewing the CDE webpage on complaint procedures. They talked about one of the things they can recommend, or one of the things they can request, sorry, one of the things they can request from the LEA are the service logs. So what are those? Service logs are a piece of paper that's in your child's file. And what they are is a listing of all of the services that were provided to your child. So every time for speech therapy, for example, it should have the date the service was provided, for how long the service was provided, like a half an hour, whatever. What goal was worked on from the IEP and what progress was made. Okay, so it should basically have the who, what, when, where's. It should have the name of the therapist. It should have all that kind of stuff. So date, how long was the service, what kind of progress was made on the IEP, who provided the service. Okay, the who, what, when, where, whys. And bottom line is that you can request this. It's a school record. So you can say, hey, please send me a copy of all the service logs for my child if you're curious, and you can compare it to your IEP. Okay, so in this case, we're including a copy of the service log. So the parent already went through the work of getting a copy of it from the district, who has to provide it within 5 business days, and it was attached to this letter. Okay. Then what we recommend is a very short form of the contacts you've had with the LEA. Okay, of the things you've done and communicated with them in an attempt to resolve this. Okay, so you want to just have a date, and then we had an IEP meeting. Now notice, there's nothing here. It doesn't say who was at the IEP. It doesn't say this person looked at me funny. They didn't smile at me when I walked down the hallway, and now they're rude and mean to me. And nobody cares. Okay, and I, normally when I say nobody cares, I mean that a little facetiously. In this case, it doesn't matter, because remember, this entire process is about what does the law say is required? Did they break the law? That's all it is. So again, parents consented to the IEP. Okay, then a little later, mom spoke with the director of special education to try and resolve this issue of obtaining the services. Now notice, it's not chapter and verse. We don't get into every single detail about it. Okay, that's not it. No, we just tried to work it out. And then mom sent a letter via certified mail attached that requested an immediate provision of the therapies and services. And then you could put down whether or not a response was received. How powerful is that? No verbal or written response received to date. Wow, right? Mom spoke with the director of special ed in an attempt to resolve the issues. Again, because we know how these things happen. Mom sent the letter via certified mail, again asking for the immediate provision of the service. Okay. Keeps flipping pages. There we go. Okay. Then, let's see, last, requesting immediate provision, and that's it. So, which is fine. Nobody should wait more than 3 months to resolve this kind of stuff. Okay. I mean, you should give them an opportunity to resolve it. You should give the LEA an opportunity to fix it. And then after a reasonable amount of time has passed, you can move on to the next level of the complaint process. Okay. So, and again, remember, in all of these processes, whether it's due process, a state compliance complaint, or something else, in many of these situations, the challenge is in making sure that you appear to be the most reasonable person in the room. Okay, you want to look like the most reasonable person in the room. So, using this letter or complaint process as an opportunity to voice your frustrations and talk about the interpersonal aspects is really just wasted energy here. Okay, so as you can see, we went from the allegation itself to the facts, right? The evidence that supports it, to contacts that have been made to try and resolve this informally, to the proposed resolution. So as you can see, the proposed resolution, we're requesting the following resolutions. At district expense or LEA expense, immediate provision of the services that are in the IEP, right? And all we do is just restate what the IEP included. So again, nothing fancy, okay? The district can use a therapy employed by the district or a non-public agency. So this is one where in this situation, but I think this is a good general statement. In this situation in particular, one of the reasons why the district said they couldn't provide the service was because they didn't have a therapist to do it. And so by saying the district can use either one of their staff or a non-public agency, a private speech therapy organization, you're just saying, yeah, they can use whatever resources are at their disposal to fix this issue. So cool. At LEA expense, immediate provision of the OT service. Again, it can be a therapist employed by the district or a non-public agency. If you've heard the initials NPA, that's what that means, non-public agency. Just means an agency that is not part of the school district. They're just not a public agency. It's a private organization. Okay. Then the proposed resolution includes compensatory education in the form of 21 hours of speech therapy. Okay. This is based on the educational loss the student has sustained because no speech therapy was provided from the date of the IEP, which is 14 weeks. 90 minutes of services for 14 weeks equals 1,260 minutes or 21 hours. So now, is it silly to do the math right here? No. No, you want to spell it out for them. Spell it out. Make it easy. You want to make it easy and clear. Okay. How did you get to that 14 weeks? If we ended it right at 14 weeks, what does that mean? Oh, I don't know. It's a lot less clear. But then if we say, oh, 90 minutes a week at 14, okay, this person isn't asking for more than what was missed. Wow. Okay. I guess the student didn't experience as much loss. Whatever. Maybe people think that stuff. Maybe they won't. Okay. If additional hours of services are not provided while this complaint is investigated, it is requested that the time lost during the investigation is added to the total comp ed. Right. So again, if it takes CDE 2 months to do the investigation, that's 2 months of no services. So best to clearly state, we want those hours added to the total comp ed award. Okay. And then we have the same thing for occupational therapy. But instead of 21 hours, 14 hours are being requested because that service is only at 60 minutes a week. Okay. And again, we make that same statement, please add on any minutes to the comp ed if the service isn't being provided throughout the period of investigation. You say thank you, and then what you do is you sign it. You sign it as the parents. You include your names in writing underneath your signature so that's clear. You include your contact information. The investigator is not going to want to check your email for your contact information. Also remember, one of the requirements was address, contact info, and so on. So include it here, okay? And then because you have to send a copy of the complaint to the school district, you make sure that you clearly copy and send them via registered mail to representatives of the district, okay? Now, the reason why you use representatives of the district, you always want to send it to the superintendent. They're the ultimate authority in the school district other than the Board of Education, right? The Board of Education hires and fires the superintendent. The superintendent is the highest staff member, is the highest executive for the district. They are an official agent of the district, okay? The principal, you want to send it to the principal. Again, they have decision-making authority. They are high enough up the chain of command to be an official representative for the district, okay? And then the special ed director. Generally, they have decision-making abilities. You want to include them, okay? Does the teacher have those decision-making abilities? Not so much. They're not considered an official representative of the entire district, generally speaking. Okay. Now, the law says you just got to file, you just got to send a copy of the complaint to the district. Could you send it just to the superintendent alone and nobody else? Yeah, you could. You could. Okay. But in the interest of letting other people know, in the interest of hopefully they talk about this, you can send copies to everybody. Okay. There's no need to hide the ball here. Sometimes people say, well, do I want to hide the ball? Do I not want to include the district? Well, yeah, you can not include the district, but then that complaint is going to get rejected by CDE for failing to meet one of the requirements. Okay, so you want to make sure that you include folks at a minimum, at least the superintendent of the district. Okay, if you want to include more people, great. If you want to include less, that's fine too. And that's basically the process of how you do this. So one of the things that families tell us is that the most challenging thing about this is this bit about finding the legal citations. Okay. Now, if you have a copy of the Special Education Rights and Responsibilities Manual, you may want to check that and see if you can find the law in there. Okay. If you've read it, you know there are a lot of legal citations in there. That may be helpful. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm going to share my screen once again, and we're going to go to my browser, and we're going to go to, where are we going to go? Oh, I just lost my train of thought. We were going to go to, somebody want to put it in the chat? Let's see, where are my windows? Okay. We didn't want to go to the complaint process. The citations, right? So the SIR. So let's go to the SIR. So here, first thing you do is you go to disabilityrightsca.org. Oh, I didn't spell it right. There we go. .org. Okay. So this is Disability Rights California. They are a sister federal agency to us. So remember how I told you, our role is to do advocacy from a systemic point of view. Our role is essentially to ensure that that we are the rising tide that lifts all boats, right? DRC, as a federal partner agency, they are also a federally funded agency. They're not a state agency, but they're not, and they're nonprofit, but they're federally funded. They do advocacy on an individual basis, so they can actually directly represent folks. All right, but like us, they have a number of resources and publications that others have created, or excuse me, that they have created, pardon me. And so what you can do is go to their resources and publications section, you find special education, okay, you can see regional centers here, and you click it, and boom, now we have all the documents that DRC has put on their website pertaining to special education. So you can see students' right to special ed and juvenile detention, transition services, disability discrimination, advocacy tips, bullying and harassment, okay, how to obtain an IEE, is the school retaliating, suspensions, occupational and physical therapy and IEPs, tips, when can a student require medication? So now we're going, oh my gosh, wait, what about the Special Ed Rights and Responsibilities Manual? You said that, Chris, why isn't it there? Haha, tricked you. They have a special for the two most popular publications that DRC has. They have special breakouts here. Okay, So I'm going to come back to we're going to go back to the front page again. We click resources, we click special ed, and right away we can look at these resources here, and you will see Special Education Rights and Responsibilities Manual. You can see it's not in alphabetical order, it's at the end, because these are their flagship books. Well, if we click on it, you can see, here's a copy of it, how to use the manual, and boom. Okay. And there we go. And as you look on the left, all the chapters, here you go with links. Can I tape record an IEP meeting? So I'm just clicking that randomly. Caught my eye. All right, not so random, it caught my eye. But they note the California state law that permits the recording of IEPs. It's right there. So there's some great stuff in there. And again, the left pane here changes based on the context of where you're at. So, and I can go back over here. There's a lot of ways you can navigate this stuff. Okay. And you can see, look here, all these citations. Remember that 1414 D1A? That was one of the citations we used. It's a requirement to provide a free, appropriate public education. Okay. And so on and so forth. You can see, look, information on due process, compliance procedures, least restrictive environment. Like there's a host of information. Strongly recommend you read this book. Just 10 pages a day. Do 10 pages a day, you'll get through it. It's about printed, it's about, if I recall correctly, about 400 or 500 pages. It's a lot. But read 10 pages a day, you're done in 2 months. Okay. Additionally, just since we're doing this, and then we're going to stop the presentation, take a few questions, let's go back to DRC's homepage. And we can go to their resources. And by the way, some of this stuff is down here under featured content at times. So, you know, even though I'm not scrolling through and looking at everything here, you may want to, because there's clearly a lot of information. Okay. So you go to resources, we go to special ed again, or excuse me, regional center, or we can go to special ed, it doesn't really matter. And then here you have rights on the Lanterman Act. And so this is DRC's other popular book. This is rights regarding regional center from the age of 3 on up. There is a chapter on early start. And so, boom, here you go. IPPs, regional center is the starting point. Lots of good background information here in chapter 1. It's kind of info that could be scattered throughout the rest of the book, but they put it together here. And that first chapter really gives people a good grounding for what's happening. So you can see these resources are available. You can read these, read them at your own leisure. This book, if I remember correctly, is a little bit bigger. It's about 550 pages, but includes tons of stuff here. So I'm going to just randomly click on one of these I don't know. Here, let's just do services and supports. Do you want to load downloads? Fine, yeah, allowed. And I'm not sure if this pop-up came, but, oh, you know why? Because I pulled it up as a doc instead of a PDF. I apologize. So let's do services support as a PDF. Boom. And here it is. And again, if now I really am scrolling randomly. I'm just in the middle somewhere. What if I need more respite hours? Here's what you do. Boom. What can we do if a request was denied? Well, you can do all this stuff. So, I mean, these books are great. All right, so that concludes the presentation right now. I'd like to invite everybody to put any questions that you have in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them. In the meantime, Valerie, if you could put the poll up right now, the timing would be perfect for that. Excellent. So all of you should see a pop-up window called polls, and it should note, you should see that it has questions about who you are. As a result of this activity, I will have more advocacy skills and abilities. We're conducting this poll because we're required to tell the federal government, who is our funding agency, the outcome of our work and if people are happy with our work. So if you can fill out this poll, we would greatly appreciate it. That way we can provide that feedback, and the federal government can know that we are largely, not largely, that we are doing our jobs and we're doing a good job. So, so if you can fill that out, I would appreciate it. And I see people are starting to complete it and because results are coming in. Now, one of the things I'm going to be doing is dropping these files into the chat. And let's see if I can make that happen. Nope, can't do it. Okay, I got to manually drop them in. So let's take care of that. I'm going to be dropping in just the English version of these files, but if you would like the Spanish version of them, please let me know and I'll be happy to just add the Spanish. It's not a big deal. By the way, the letter that we reviewed, the opening of it is in Spanish, and then about halfway through is the English version. So, so please don't be discouraged if you see the Spanish version immediately. The information you're looking for is there. I promise you, it's just a few pages in. And I'm dropping in. So I've dropped in the state compliance complaint trifold. I've dropped in the form letter or the sample letter. I've dropped in the bullying handbook, and now I'm going to drop in the IEP strategy guide. And let's see, do I have anything else? I'll drop in developmental milestones, mostly just because I can, and you might want it. If you didn't attend our previous trainings, yeah, you may absolutely want it. And that's basically it. So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat so far. It looks like the majority of you have completed the poll. I see 7 responses throughout most of it. I'll leave it up a little longer before I end it. But right now, just for so far, I'll let you all know. Let's see. As a result, all those who responded said that they'll have more advocacy skills. As a result of this training, I'm better able to say what I want. Everybody agrees with that. The majority of people who responded, 5 out of the 7, said that they're now participating in advocacy activities. 5 out of the 7 who responded are members of an advocacy group or serving in a leadership position or on a committee or a board. Good for you. Thank you for being involved. It's now 6 out of 2 people. 100% of you who responded are happy with this. Thank you. And now we're up to 9 people. Thank you. And this is my first time attending an SCDD event. The answer was no for everybody. So all of you have been to some kind of SCDD event. And given that I'm recognizing many of your names, I'm either recognizing you as staff, as someone from the LA area, the San Bernardino area. And if I remember correctly, I see somebody here even from the Sacramento area, which is awesome. So thank you for coming. Thank you for attending. You have no idea how much we appreciate getting this information out to you. We have some diversity. 6 out of the 9 people who responded are Latinos. 2 are white, 1 is Black, and 1 is multiracial. Let's see. We have one person who identifies as male, 1 person who identifies as female. 7 out of the 10 people. Oh, we got another respondent. Thank you, guys. 7 out of the 10 work in the field of disabilities. So again, and somebody told me in chat that they're from the Palm Springs area. I'm not saying who's from where because I assume that you guys may want to keep your privacy. And that's basically it. So I'm going to end the chat, or excuse me, I'm going to end the poll. Forgive me. None have been added for a while. And there we go. And here I'm going to formally share the results so you all can see them. And oh, for the demographics, things have changed a little. So about half our crowd are family members, 2 are self-advocates, and 3 are other professionals. And you can see the results yourself. And again, thank you for attending. Thank you for being here. We really love getting this information out there, and really appreciate it. Now, one of the things I'm going to assume, and you can put this in the chat, is because there are no questions, this was, you guys feel very comfortable with the information, you feel knowledgeable about it, you feel like you understand it, you know where to go to review this stuff later. That's my assumption by seeing no questions. And if that's wrong, please feel free to put that in the chat. But as of now, I've gotten a thank you or two so far. So thank you again for coming. And a couple more coming in. Thank you so much, guys.
Chris?
Yes.
Hi, Valerie. There is a chat or something in the things that it's privately sent. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, so long as it doesn't have any identifiable information, that would be great.
Okay, so it just says transportation as a relative service. Can the district deny transportation if parent transfers their child to a school of choice, even though student qualifies based on their disability?
If it's a school of choice, what they're doing is they're making the argument essentially that because you've chosen this school and they've allowed you to do that, it's almost like you're waiving transportation. I have to tell you, I mean, that's the argument that's being made here in the question that the school's making. And I got to be honest, I have no idea. I have no idea. I've heard conflicting information about that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share, and I'm going to show you what I would do as an advocate. So here's my screen again. Let's get out of this. Let's go back to CDE. And I'm going to enter transportation, because guess what? Not only ESY, that article from Wright's Law on ESY, fantastic, okay? CDE has a great article on transportation. Oh, and the content's under review, man. All right, so, well, then I'm gonna get to show you another trick. So you can see I chose I entered transportation, you know, CTE model curriculum standards transportation. This is a model framework. It's, you know, this can tell you what the standards are and that kind of thing, but ultimately this is not going to get you what you need. You can see it's not really relevant, but this actually is. So now you see this and we're like, oh darn, we can't get this information. So now I'm going to show you a trick. Okay, how many people, if you can raise your hands, are familiar with archive.org? Has anybody heard of archive? And put down yes or no. Put down. So, and you can see I'm going to archive.org. And here it's called the Internet Wayback Machine. So for those of you who are you may have been Saturday morning cartoon fanatics, you may have heard of the Internet, or excuse me, the Wayback Machine. And the Wayback Machine was a time machine with some cartoon characters and stuff. Okay, everybody's saying no to archive.org. Okay, I'm going to radically change your lives. Okay, so here's what we do. This is an internet archive. This website seeks to try and map out the entire internet. It's ridiculous and it's almost absurd in its scale and scope. It's huge. But here's the thing. If I type here cde.ca.gov and I hit enter, guess what? This website has mapped out the CDE website on these dates and these times. So if I click 2020, these are all the dates that this website has gone out and mapped out the CDE website. And sometimes it's just a little bit, and sometimes it's a lot. And that's what the size of these circles indicate. Okay, so this is it. So if I want to go, let's say, because this page is under construction. So I'm going to go to the most recent version that they've done a snapshot. I click it. Now this website is slow. It's going to take us there. At least I hope that's what's happening. Yeah, I don't see the spinning thing. So it looks like I'm going to have to choose a snapshot. So I'll choose the latest one. And then here we go. Now it is slow, so you got to give it, and this is true. I've found that this website is slow no matter no matter what computer I use, no matter what browser I use, no matter what internet connection I use, it's just slow. And guess what? Boom. The only way you know that you're looking at a saved version of this website is because it says Internet Wayback Machine up here. Okay. Now, if I want to look at an earlier version, I can click this and it'll show me an earlier version. I'm not going to do it because it takes so long, but you can see. So guess what? If I go to specialized programs, special education, I will find what was on the website. But here in this case, I can, whoops, I spelled transportation wrong. I can enter transportation, and I still spelled it wrong. Let's try again. Transportation. Oh, and we're not getting anything. So now let's go back to the page. This is the original page. This is the real page. This is the live one. So I need to get to this. So CI. I don't know what CI is, but let's figure it out. So let me go. Do I see anything here that looks like CI? No. Do I see anything here that looks like a web address? I sure do. It's right here at the end. So what am I going to do? You know what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy and paste it. Copy. Go back. I'm going to put it in here and I'm going to take a stab at making this right. Okay, I've got 2 slashes there. So let's get rid of this extra slash. Now let's hit enter and see what happens. Now I have faith in what's going to happen, but I don't know what's going to happen. So let's see. Please don't be under construction. Please don't be under construction. Please don't be under construction. Please don't be under. So coming up, and look at this. It automatically switched to October 16th. So this may be the last time that this page was available. It may have been under construction for all this time. How cool would it be if you called CDE's technical assistance unit and you said, hey, I'd love to get some information on transportation, but it looks like that page is under construction on the website. Can you tell me when it's going to get updated? Think of all the people who may look this up. So transportation. And so here they talk about all the things related to transportation. And there's lots of information about it. Now, if you don't find enough, you don't find the technical stuff, the requirements, what kind of thing, fine. Fine. Oh, see, and look at this. This is giving us the transportation industries. Not good, right? So fine, let's go to Wright's Law. It's what we do. Whenever I'm looking for special ed stuff, I go to CDE and then I go to Wright's Law, sometimes the reverse order. I enter transportation. Boom, I go to the first one. Transportation IEP, sorry, we're short staffed, can't do it. Boom, and now here's the article about how do you deal with that. Here's a primer on special education transportation. I don't know what's going to happen if I click it, but whoa, hello. Look at that. Boom. So now let's do something real fancy. Let's do a search of this document. Somebody said, what was it? The issue was transportation and school of choice. So let's just look for the word choice. Hey, look at that. In the 8th Circuit, now remember, we're under the 9th Circuit, but under the 8th Circuit, they ruled an LEA did not discriminate when it refused to provide them with specialized transportation to the school of their choice. Okay, so that's a big deal. Big deal, right? Under the transfer program, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but that's over there. What about here? Well, okay, so and you do your usual. You read, you search, you write, and here's another choice, and that's it. But boom, okay, so you can see, easy. What did it take us? Not even 5 minutes, okay? That's why I really encourage you to, strongly encourage you to bump around a little bit in the, and so ultimately the information's probably here somewhere. So reading the article, I would, obviously read this entire document, okay? Now, additionally, because this is Wright's Law, look, I clicked on this one right here, but here, negotiating with the school on transportation issues. And so they have some advocacy strategies here. What can you do about that? So more solutions and then more articles about this. So it's really an invaluable resource for many people here. Transportation in the IEP. Even though these are all variations on a theme, it's probably best to look at each of these. Okay. Training in the IEP for school bus drivers. School says only one way, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see this information is freely available. Get used to browsing, get used to getting out there, but also remember that archive.org. It's a great way to find documents that you can't find anymore. So check it out. Now, one thing to keep in mind too is that, like for example, one of my favorite documents was a document called What About IHSS? What About IHSS? And DDS used to have it on their website. And it talked about the basics of IHSS, what you need to know. And at a certain point in time, maybe about 6, 7 years, actually, no, oh gosh. Okay, we're going back to around maybe 2012, 2011. DDS took that off their website. And I got calls from parents saying, hey, what happened? I used to go and look at that document all the time. It was a great document, blah, 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 blah. And people just couldn't get it. Well, what we found was that ultimately we went to archive.org and we were able to pull up that document and get it, no problem. But the problem was, why was it taken down from the website? It was taken down from the website because a lot of changes had been made to the IHSS program at that time, and much of the information in the book was no longer accurate. So keep that in mind when you're using archive.org, unless the archive is from a week ago or relatively recent, you can't be sure that that information is the most current. But you can get the information and double check it. So if you get the information and says, well, according to US Code section 1414 D1A, it says the services have to be provided in accordance with the IEP, and transportation is in the IEP. Well, you can always look up 1414 D1A and do it. And if you're concerned about that, here, just go, Google should be your friend, or whatever browser you like to use. But you can say something like, well, here, let's just go to Google. And here we can do special education, and then 1414 D1A. Boom. First one. Here it is. Now you can read the law. So the value of archive.org isn't just to get what may be current information, but it may be able to get the source information like the law, and then you can do a Google search and find that, and now you can do research on the current stuff. Now you're looking at the current law. So you don't have to be too concerned or worried about, is it current, is it no, you double checked, it's here, right? And because it's the law, no matter what website you go to, right? So let's go to a different website here, Law Cornell. This is the one I use. I come here when I'm looking up federal law a lot. And boom, here it is. And why do I use Cornell? Because I like it. Because I got preferences, right? So we wanted 1414 D1A. Okay, we're not right there, but we can scroll down and find it eventually. So where's the little D? Give me a little one. Come on, 6, 7, E. Oh, we way past it. E. Way past it. Okay, we're one letter past it. And then as we scroll and look for this, boom, D. Here it is. And I can read it. Another reason why I like this is I can blow it up and make it my entire screen. So, whatever. But the bottom line is you can see how doing this research and getting this information can be really, really helpful in terms of the info that you access. Okay. I don't see any other questions. Nobody's posted any additional questions in the chat since I've been answering this and showing you this stuff. So I think it's time for us to end the presentation unless somebody puts something in the chat right now. Again, thank you for completing first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for completing the poll. I just realized I did not start the call by wishing everybody a Happy New Year. So Happy New Year. And let's hope that 2021 is a great success and year for everybody. Right on. I dig the thumbs up and the party icons. And so again, thank you for coming. Have a great day and keep your eyes peeled for trainings like this in the future. Take care, everybody, and have a great day.